Hey there, welcome. I'm your CIMA tutor, and my #1 job is to help you walk into that exam feeling totally prepared. Today, we're going to absolutely nail one of the biggest topics on your P1 paper, limiting factor analysis. Ready? Let's dive in. So, be honest, does your heart sink just a little bit when you see a big limiting factor question on a mock exam? Yeah, you're not alone. But I'm going to make you a promise. Stick with me through this explainer and you're going to learn exactly how to solve these problems, how to optimize profit, and how to get every single mark available. Let's do this.
Here is our game plan for today, our Profit Maximizers playbook. We're going to go step by step, starting with the core idea, then a simple problem, and then we'll level up to the more complex stuff. By the end of this, you'll have a rock-solid strategy for any question they throw at you.
All right, first up, what's actually holding you back? Every single business, I don't care if it's a corner shop or a giant like Apple, has something stopping it from making infinite profit. In the CIMA world, we have a name for that, the principal budget factor. The best way to think about this is like a bottleneck in a glass bottle. You could have a whole gallon of water in there, but it can only pour out as fast as that narrow neck will allow. That neck, that's your limiting factor. It controls the speed of everything else, and your first job always is to figure out what it is. So what do these bottlenecks actually look like? Well, for the exam, here's a super handy way to remember them, the 5 M's. It could be market demand. You can't sell what nobody wants to buy. It could be materials. A bakery can't make cakes without flour. Manpower, not enough skilled people to do the work. Machine hours, your key piece of equipment can only run 24 hours a day. Or it could be money. Just not enough cash to get things moving. Spotting which M is the problem is always step 1. Okay, section 2. So you've found the bottleneck. You know what's holding you back. Now what? This is where we get super practical with a simple, repeatable method that is designed to just scoop up all the marks in the exam. This right here is your secret weapon for single limiting factor questions. It's a simple 4-step process. I want you to burn this into your brain. Find, calculate, rank, plan. First, you find the bottleneck. Second, you calculate the profit, or as we say, the contribution, that each product makes for every single unit of that bottleneck. Third, you rank your products. And finally, you plan your production to make the most money possible. Let's see it in action. Now listen up, because this is the #1 trap students fall into. You absolutely, positively must rank your products based on the profit they make per hour or per kilo or per whatever the limiting factor is. It's not about the profit per product. A product might look amazing on paper, but if it hogs all your scarce resources, it could actually be your worst enemy. So remember, it's all about profit per bottleneck unit. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's make this stuff real. Let's meet the Doodle Bakery. They make these super cute treats for pets, and right now they've got a classic business problem that we are going to solve for them. This is going to make that 4-step process crystal clear. So here's the data for their 2 big sellers, cat cookies and dog donuts. We can see all the numbers, prices, costs, but pay close attention to the baking hours. Cat cookies take 1 hour, dog donuts take 2. And here's the kicker. This week, Doodle Bakery only has 200 total hours of baking time available. Let's put our method to the test. Step 1. Find the limiting factor. First, let's see if there even is a problem. If they wanted to make everything customers wanted, they'd need 100 hours for the cookies plus 160 hours for the donuts. That's 260 hours. But wait, they only have 200 hours. So, bingo, we've found our bottleneck. It's the baking hours. Okay, now for step 2, the most important calculation of all. First, let's work out the contribution per unit. For cookies, it's 10 minus 2 minus 3, which is $5. For donuts, it's 12 minus 3 minus 4, which is also $5. So, are they equally profitable? No way. This is that trap I told you about. We have to divide by the limiting factor. Cat cookies make $5 in 1 hour. Dog donuts make $5, but they take 2 hours. That means they only generate $2.50 per hour. That's a huge difference. And just like that, step 3 is a no-brainer. We rank them. For every precious hour of oven time, cat cookies make us twice as much money as dog donuts. So the priority is crystal clear. We're going to make the cat cookies first. And finally, the payoff. Step 4. We create our optimal production plan. We start with our 200 hours. First priority? Cat cookies. We can make all 100 that the market wants, and that uses up 100 of our hours. Great. We've got 100 hours left, so what do we do with them? We make our second best product, the dog donuts. Since they take 2 hours each, we can make 50 of them. And that's our plan. We've used up all our time and made the maximum possible profit, a cool $750.
This whole exercise leads us to a really smart concept called the shadow price. It basically answers this question: what's one more hour of baking time really worth to me? Well, think about it. If we magically got 1 extra hour, what would we do with it? We've already made all the cat cookies people want, so we'd have to use that hour to make more dog donuts. And how much profit do we make from an hour spent on dog donuts? $2.50. So the shadow price of 1 baking hour is $2.50. That's the most the bakery should ever pay for 1 extra hour of oven time.
Oh, and a quick heads up for the exam. You might see a question about something called throughput accounting. Don't let it throw you. The thinking, the logic, is exactly the same as what we just did. The only tiny difference is the formula. For throughput, you only subtract material costs from sales. But the key skill, calculating a return per limiting factor and ranking, is identical. You already know how to do it.
So far, so good, right? But what happens when things get, a bit more complicated? What if the Doodle Bakery isn't just short on oven time, but they're also short on skilled bakers? When you have more than one bottleneck, our simple ranking method just doesn't work anymore. We need a bigger tool.
So let's compare. When you've got one bottleneck, you use our simple 4-step ranking plan. Easy. But when you have 2 or more bottlenecks, say a limit on baking hours and a limit on labor hours, we have to bring out the big guns, a technique called linear programming. And for your P1 exam, that usually means we're going to have to draw a graph.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. 7 steps? That looks scary. But I promise you, it's just as logical as our first method. It's like following a recipe. If you follow each step in order, you can't go wrong. We're going to define our products, state our goal, list our limitations, and then draw a map to find the treasure.
Seriously, I want you to think of this as drawing a treasure map. The constraints are the borders on the map, the space inside is where we're allowed to search, and the X that marks the spot, well, that's our maximum profit. So let's draw the profit map for the Doodle Bakery.
Okay, here's our new, trickier problem. First, let's define our variables. We'll say X is the number of cat cookies and Y is the number of dog donuts. Our goal, our objective, is to maximize contribution. Since both make $5, our objective function is C equals 5x plus 5y. Now the rules. We still have our baking limit. 1x plus 2y must be less than or equal to 200. And we have a new one for labor. 2x plus 1y must be less than or equal to 220. We've got our mission and our rules.
Okay, let's get visual. Step 4 is to actually plot the graph. We start simple, with our 2 axes. We'll put our X variable, cat cookies, on the bottom, and our Y variable, dog donuts, up the side. Simple as that. Now let's draw our first constraint line, the baking hours. The easiest way to draw any line is to find where it hits the edges. So first, let's imagine we make 0 dog donuts, so Y is 0. The formula becomes 1x equals 200, so we can make 200 cookies. Put a dot on the x-axis at 200. Now let's imagine we make 0 cat cookies, so x is 0. The formula is 2y equals 200, which means y is 100. Put a dot on the y-axis at 100. Now, just connect the dots with a straight line. That's our first border. We do the exact same thing for our second constraint, the labor hours. If y is 0, 2x equals 220, so x is 110. Put a dot at 110 on the x-axis. If x is 0, 1y equals 220, so put a dot at 220 on the y-axis. Connect those 2 dots, and there's our second border.
Now for step 5. See this area, this shape that's boxed in by our lines and the axes? That's called the feasible region. This is our valid territory on the treasure map. Any point inside this shape is a production plan that we can actually do without breaking our rules. Our best answer, our treasure, has to be hiding somewhere on the edge of this shape.
So which corner is the best one? To find it, we use our objective function. That's C equals 5x plus 5y. We can draw this as a profit line. Imagine it's like a ruler. We want to maximize profit, right? So we push this ruler outwards, keeping it parallel as far as it can possibly go before it leaves our shaded area completely. The very last corner it touches, that's it. That's our optimal point. That's the treasure.
Our graph clearly shows that the best spot is where our two constraint lines cross each other. Now, to find the exact coordinates, we can't just guess. We need to use a bit of algebra and solve these two equations simultaneously. When you do the math, it spits out the answer x equals 80 and y equals 60. So our optimal plan is to make 80 cat cookies and 60 dog donuts. And if we plug that back into our profit formula, we get a maximum contribution of $700.
And please, I'm begging you, here's another huge exam tip. Do not just look at your drawing and guess the answer. You will lose easy marks. To get full credit, you must show the examiner your workings. Solve the simultaneous equations to prove you know how to find the precise, optimal point. Okay, we are on the home stretch. Let's finish up by revisiting that super important idea of a shadow price, but now in the world of linear programming. And then we'll do a final, quick-fire recap of our entire playbook. The shadow price in linear programming is the exact same idea we saw before. How much extra profit could we make if we got just one more unit of a resource? The key word here is binding. In our example, both baking and labor hours were totally used up. They were binding constraints. A shadow price tells you the value of relaxing one of those. But what if you had a constraint with resources left over? We'd call that non-binding, and its shadow price would be 0. Why? Because getting more of something you already have plenty of is completely worthless.
So let's recap the whole thing. Your playbook is this simple. You see one bottleneck, you use the 4-step plan. Find, calculate, rank, plan. You see multiple bottlenecks, you bring out the big guns. Linear programming. The golden rule that never, ever changes is to always rank by contribution per limiting factor. And finally, remember that the shadow price is your secret weapon for figuring out exactly what one more resource is worth to the business.
We've covered a ton of ground, and you now have a complete toolkit to ace these questions. So I'll leave you with a final challenge to really lock in this knowledge. You're the expert now. You've calculated the shadow price for baking hours. How would you use that specific number to walk into the manager's office at Doodle Bakery and build a business case to convince them to invest in a brand new oven? Think about it. Thanks for your focus today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.